All right, ladies and gentlemen, Baron here. So we're going to be talking about Battlefield 1, the new reveal by DICE, the newest Battlefield game, what was previously known as Battlefield 5, and then the rumors and the leaks, or supposed alleged leaks, that Battlefield would be set in World War 1. Well, those rumors were in fact confirmed today. We know for a fact now, after watching that amazing trailer and looking at some of these screenshots, what we're going to be able to expect. And in the background, we've got Verdun. It's the only real first-person shooter set in the World War I historical genre to this point. It's a fun game. It's realistic, and it's very difficult. It's very like high skill, kind of going for more realism. Now, looking at these pictures, though, we're going to be going over what we're hyped for, and in the meantime, we're going to have Verdun gameplay, so please do not confuse it as Battlefield 1 gameplay, because I don't think anyone is allowed to put anything up like that. But in this first picture, you can see what looks like the nose of a Fokker triplane, and in front of it, you've got triplanes, biplanes, some small and large, some barrage balloons, which are basically, flying over important objectives to kind of like keep planes from flying too close. I wonder how effective they actually were. Lots of explosions. There's a township in the bottom. There's some trench works, light trench works anyway, relative to, most World War I front lines areas. I don't really think we're going to see too much of those style maps because Battlefield 1 made sure to keep themselves the creative license to kind of go where they wanted and where they would kind of need to go to make a Battlefield style game fit in the World War I genre, right? So will we see the Somme and the Ardennes and, Battle of Flanders and all of these really historical World War I battle sites? Probably not. We're going to get something that fits the rock, paper, scissors, land, sea, and air that Battlefield is known for. So I'm pretty excited for that. And the naming's kind of funny. Battlefield 1, I think Battlefield 1 obviously pays homage rather to World War I. And technically they're allowed to do that because there was no real Battlefield 1. Battlefield 1 was actually named Battlefield 1942. So that, going forward, here you're going to see a picture of some cavalry, or rather one lady on a cavalry with some tribal markings on her face. I think a lot of people aren't familiar with some of the other theaters of World War I, like where the Ottomans and the Germans fought in the Middle East. The Ottoman Empire had a very big role, but the fact that horses and cavalry are going to be in the game, now here's the thing. Will we see that in multiplayer? Like, we're definitely going to see some cavalry charges in single player, in the campaign, because they're going to, they said in the reveal that they would go down a few different storylines and show different theaters of war, right? And they have the creative license to kind of go where they want to, since they're saying it's an alternative history set in World War I, So we've got the weapons, and if you look at the horse, right in front, she's got this pretty nice saber, and it looks like a multi-grenade, basically, which was used in World War I, basically clumps of grenades used as kind of like satchel charges, basically the World War I equivalent of satchel charges. So moving on, we've got this amazing looking flamethrower. Flamethrowers were used in World War I. The Browning automatic rifle came out in 1918, I believe. So automatic rifles, submachine guns, and then belt-fed machine guns, obviously, all took place and were the weapons of war during World War I. Now, this is pretty interesting because it almost looks like not only is he protected from, he's got thick leather gloves, a gas mask, goggles, and stuff like that. And in the trailer, there was one scene where it looked like one of the soldiers had body armor on, which is a possibility. There was a lot of interesting technology that they experimented with in World War I, right? So moving on, that gets us to where we are now at this tank, what looks like a British Mark I or British variant of the Mark series of tanks. Basically, when most people think of World War I, they imagine, like in tanks in World War I, they think about this instead of maybe what you should in the Renault FT-17, which was the first modern tank, and we will hopefully see in Battlefield. If we don't see it, I think that would be a crying shame. But it looks like, what is that? Maybe a German soldier kind of in uniform with another one of those giant grenades, kind of like the satchel charges. And it looks like if you look at his rifle, the barrel on his gun, it's got some holes in it, so it might be an automatic weapon. And if you look at the belt kind of around his back, those look like they would carry pistol rounds in them, judging by the size of it. So I would imagine that guy has an SMG in desert camouflage. And then you've got, is that an anti-tank rifle or a sniper rifle? Judging by the fact that it doesn't have a scope, I'm led to believe that it's probably more of an anti-tank rifle. And you've got a gas mask, full, garb covering every bit of that person. Machine gun sticking out the front, and then cannons sticking out the sides of that British Mark tank. So it's kind of that classic, British style Mark tank. It's pretty, it's beautiful. I mean, that's impressive. And then moving on, we have Zeppelins. Now here's the thing. We know that we're going to have, Sopwith Camels, Fokker triplanes, some very, impressive aircraft for their time and very renowned for World War I. You've got, the Red Baron himself flying a Fokker triplane. And oh, believe me, I'm excited to try that out. But Zeppelins, I'm not sure if they're going to be multiplayer or single. Like, obviously, they'll show up in single player. But how will they play in multiplayer? Could they be a spawning base for airplanes in the sky? Because I know there was a lot of parasite fighters that operated off of Zeppelins. And Zeppelins were really the first heavy bombers. Although there were plenty of designs during World War I where they finally created multi-engine aircraft and used bombs and stuff like that. You have to remember that at the beginning of World War I, planes were used for scouting, right? And then the first aerial engagements were people with pistols, and the first bombing runs were people literally throwing things out of their aircraft at the enemy on the ground. So that's where it started, and then it went all the way to, multi-engine aircraft dropping bombs and being able to carry ordnance on hard points and in bomb bays and stuff like that. So it's really interesting to see the evolution of aerial combat during that war specifically. So it'll be fun to see how Battlefield takes it and where they decide to take it. But when you look at this Zeppelin, it doesn't look too well armed. They're definitely taking the classic approach to Zeppelins. There's not any of these like flying dreadnoughts or anything like that. It doesn't even look like it has too much offensive armament on it. And there's only, 4 little gondolas sticking off of it, at least from what we can see in this screenshot. But it's going to be very interesting to see how Zeppelins play into Battlefield 1. And now, moving on, we've got this guy's face. Other than some rather handsome blue eyes and some dirt all over his face, there's not much except for the fact that, holy crap, those graphics are amazing, since everything in these screenshots and in the trailer were done in the in-game Frostbite engine. And finally, the last picture here is, it looks like that guy has a flamethrower. He's on the cliff, like that little circular backing, and you can kind of see the hose of the gas mask, maybe. And then he's looking out, and that's that final element of classic rock, paper, scissors Battlefield gameplay. The naval combat. So it's a dreadnought. They were calling it battleships, but there was dreadnoughts, there was torpedo boats, there was all kinds of technology used. So sea combat will be pretty interesting. And I'm not sure if we're going to have seaplanes or if, in aircraft you're going to be able to bomb these ships. But truth be told, it's going to be interesting to see how they rock, paper, scissors, and balance naval play. Because aircraft definitely were not suited or designed to deal with ships at the time. Though I'm sure there was experimentation, plus Battlefield has that creative license, that alternative World War I history, where they could, in theory, put aircraft maybe similar to a ferry swordfish in kind of as a balancer. But it should be pretty amazing. But I'm really interested to see how, especially in the multiplayer sense, how navies and ships are balanced. So this is a game I'm incredibly hyped for. And judging by, you know, what you guys think in the comments, it'll be really fun to see where everybody stands on this game. I, for one, am a fan of where they went with Battlefield, especially when you consider Call of Duty. It's been this slow de-evolution down into small maps where it's just twitch reflexes and, you know, so many attachments on a single gun. And it's just like, what are we doing anymore? Where are those beautiful battles that, like, if anyone remembers playing Call of Duty 1, like, good lord, that was one of my favorite shooters ever, because it had these big battlefields that in front lines could be established, and later they implemented vehicles and stuff like that. Well, tanks and armored vehicles and stuff like that. But Battlefield is really going to a place where I'm excited to play. It's basically unprecedented. Verdun, which is what you've been watching in the interim, is the only game that's really touched World War I from a first-person shooter aspect. And it's a very interesting time in history in terms of military technology, advancements in aerospace and naval technologies. I mean, the weapons that were used, weapons that were experimented, body armor, flamethrowers, machine guns, automatic weaponry, armored fighting vehicles. I mean, it's really going to be fun. And it's going to be fun to see how the airplay, the naval ships, and then infantry and armor on the ground, and even cavalry, how all that stuff plays into a single battlefield where you're going to have up to 64 players at the same time. So that, ladies and gentlemen, just a little bit of my impressions and thoughts and considerations with regarding to Battlefield 1, because this is Battlefield 1 hype. And good lord, I'm excited for this. So the release date is October 21st. And there'll be a link to the trailer in the description. If you've been under a rock and you haven't seen it yet, you can click it there. So what were you most excited about when you watched the trailer? You know, what are you most excited to play in Battlefield 1? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm signing out. I'm going to go read everything I can on this game because it was just revealed today. And I'll see you guys soon.